The galaxy had seen many wars, but none like this. When the Vorkal armada appeared from the dark edges of space, even the strongest alien empires trembled. Planets that once ruled systems, species that boasted of ancient strength, all fell silent when the first Vorkal ships arrived. They were not just conquerors. They were harvesters of worlds, cold, perfect, and unstoppable. One by one, stars dimmed under their shadow. The Kalari fled to their crystal moons. The Dren Collective sealed themselves inside deep space vaults. The proud Auroch Dominion abandoned their colonies and begged for mercy. No one fought. No one stood. Except one world, Earth. The humans were not the oldest species. They were not the most advanced. But when the Vorkal sent their message, surrender or be erased, Earth did not bow. Commander Elias Ward, veteran of the Europa campaign, stood before the United Earth Fleet. His gray uniform was burned and torn at the shoulder. Behind him, through the glass of the command bridge, the planet glowed like a blue jewel wrapped in flame. The first Vorkal ships were entering orbit, black shapes blotting out the stars. He looked at his crew, men and women from every nation, every faith, every language. Some were terrified, some shaking. All were waiting for orders. Elias's voice was calm. "They think we will kneel," he said. "They think we will beg, but they do not know who we are." A young technician, barely 20, whispered, "Sir, they outnumber us 100 to 1. Elias smiled, the kind of smile that came from someone who had already accepted death. "Then they will not forget us." Outside, the sky turned red. Dozens of enemy ships opened fire, their plasma bolts tearing through the clouds. Whole cities burned in seconds, Shanghai, Berlin, Buenos Aires, but Earth was ready. From hidden bases in the mountains, rail cannons and ion batteries fired back. From underground bunkers, missiles streaked toward the heavens, punching holes through the alien fleet. The invasion had begun. In a secret bunker under Geneva, Dr. Sarah Navarro, lead scientist of Project Atlas, watched the live feeds. Her hands trembled as the screens showed the destruction of entire continents, but her eyes were cold. "They think they can erase us," she said softly. "They will learn what defiance means." Around her, hundreds of engineers worked in silence. They were building something beneath the Earth's crust. Something massive, something that could strike at the enemy through the void. She called it the Earth Pulse. It was humanity's last weapon, a dream born out of desperation. Above, in orbit, Commander Elias's ship, the Resolute, moved into formation. The fleet was small. Old carriers, reactivated mining vessels, and retrofitted freighters armed with railguns. They were not built for war, but they flew anyway. Humanity's strength was not in numbers. It was in will. As the Resolute climbed higher, Earth's burning cities became smaller below. The radio channels filled with desperate calls, soldiers shouting, mothers crying, leaders praying. But through all the chaos, one voice echoed over the Galactic network. Elias activated the wideband transmitter. "To the Vorkal," he said. "You call yourselves gods. You burn our skies, crush our homes, and demand our surrender. But we are not made to kneel. We are made to fight. So come and see what humanity truly is." His message spread like wildfire through the galaxy. On distant worlds, alien refugees watched in disbelief. For the first time, someone had spoken back to the Vorkal. The invasion fleet descended. Their ships moved like a storm. Their weapons burned the oceans. Earth satellites shattered. The moon cracked. Still, humanity refused to yield. In the ruins of New York, a firefighter carried a wounded child through smoke and falling glass. In the deserts of Africa, old tanks rolled out from forgotten military bases, their engines roaring again. In space, human pilots turned civilian freighters into suicide ships, ramming the enemy to protect their world. Each act of resistance sent a message louder than any words. "We are still here." Dr. Navarro's voice came through the fleet channel. "Commander, we can activate the first phase of the Atlas grid. It will not stop them, but it might buy you time." Elias replied, "Do it." Moments later, lightning flashed across the sky. The Atlas field surged to life, an electromagnetic barrier wrapping around the planet like a shield. Alien weapons struck it and exploded in bursts of light. For the first time, the Vorkal advance slowed. Inside the flagship of the invaders, the Vorkal warlord leaned forward. His skin was pale and glassy, his eyes glowing with cold light. "These humans," he hissed. "They resist?" His advisor nodded. "Yes, my lord. They are primitive, but relentless. The warlord's voice echoed through the dark halls of his ship. Then we will burn them all, until not even their dust remains. On Earth, Elias watched as dozens of new enemy ships appeared on sensors. His crew looked to him again. The technician whispered, "Sir, what do we do now?" Elias stared out into the burning sky. "We hold," he said. "We make them remember." The battle raged for hours. By nightfall, half the fleet was gone, but every explosion that marked a human ship's death also marked another alien destroyed. They fought not for victory, but for meaning, for the right to exist. When dawn came, the sky was still burning. But the earth still turned. Smoke covered the continents, and the seas boiled, yet humanity lived. The aliens had not expected that. Elias leaned on the rail of his command deck, his uniform soaked in sweat and blood. "They wanted our surrender," he said quietly. "Instead, they will learn our defiance." And as the sun rose behind the smoke, its light struck the battered ships of Earth's defenders. The humans looked up and saw hope, a single sunrise that told them the truth. The sky may burn, but humanity will never kneel. The world was no longer blue. From orbit, Earth looked wounded. Black scars across continents, oceans glowing with fire, cities turned into storms of smoke. But still, in that dying light, something unbroken moved beneath the flames. Humanity. The Vorkal had expected surrender. Instead, they found fury. Across the planet, humans fought street by street, roof by roof. Where soldiers fell, civilians picked up their weapons. Where armies broke, engineers built walls from the wreckage. The message was clear. Humanity would not die quietly. Commander Elias Ward stood inside the command bridge of the Resolute, eyes locked on the holographic display. Dozens of red markers, enemy ships, filled the map. Only a handful of blue ones remained. The Earth fleet was bleeding out. "Status of the orbital defenses?" Elias asked, his voice steady but low. "Half are gone, sir," replied Lieutenant Rami, her uniform scorched. "But the ground batteries are still firing." Elias nodded. "Tell them to keep firing. Every second counts." Outside the viewport, the sky glowed red as plasma fire rained from orbit. The Resolute trembled with every impact. The shields flickered. Alarms screamed. Still, no one left their post. Down below in the ruins of Geneva, Dr. Sarah Navarro and her team were buried deep under layers of stone and steel. The power of Project Atlas was growing. Giant coils hummed with energy, feeding off the planet's magnetic field. Sparks danced through the air like fireflies. Navarro wiped sweat from her face. "Status of the generator?" 78% charged, doctor, said her assistant. "But we are losing coolant pressure. If it overheats," she cut him off. "Then we die." "But so do they." Her voice carried no fear, only resolve. Humanity had reached the edge, and the edge had sharpened them. Above, the Vorkal armada began to move closer. Their warships descended into the upper atmosphere, tearing through clouds like black daggers. Each one was the size of a mountain, bristling with weapons that could erase continents. The people of Earth saw them in the sky and did not run. They aimed their guns, even knowing it would not be enough. Children hid in basements while parents fought in the streets. Old soldiers returned to battle with trembling hands. Humanity was not fighting for victory anymore. They were fighting for meaning, for the right to exist in a galaxy that had already given up on them. On alien worlds far away, millions watched the broadcasts. The humans had opened their frequencies to the entire galaxy. Every battle was seen live, every explosion, every scream, every small act of defiance. The Kalari Council watched in silence, their leader whispering, "They fight even when there is no hope." The Dren Collective asked, "Why do they not flee like the rest of us?" And somewhere deep in space, a voice answered, "Because they are human." In orbit, Elias gave the final order. "Prepare for close combat. Bring the fleet into the lower atmosphere. If we fall over home." The Resolute led the charge. Engines roared as the human fleet dove into the clouds, cutting through fire and debris. The ships were cracked, scorched, and nearly broken, but they moved like living things. They fought as one. "Target the lead cruiser," Elias shouted. Dozens of rail cannons opened fire. The impact was so massive that the alien warship split apart, raining molten metal across the sky. Cheers erupted on the Resolute's bridge, but it was short-lived. Another wave of Vorkal ships arrived, hundreds of them. They surrounded the human fleet like vultures circling prey. "Sir, we're surrounded," Rami yelled. Elias gripped the command chair. Then we fight surrounded. He opened the fleet-wide channel. All ships. This is Commander Ward. If you can still hear my voice, then you are still alive. That means the fight is not over. Today we make them remember us. We make the galaxy remember what it means to be human. His words echoed across every ship. Pilots wiped their tears and smiled. Engineers clutched their tools like weapons. Soldiers whispered their family names before firing again. Then the sky exploded. The battle that followed was unlike any seen before. Human ships darted between enemy cruisers, firing railguns and missiles at point-blank range. When ammo ran out, they rammed. Some captains deliberately crashed their burning ships into alien flagships, turning death into a weapon. On the ground, resistance fighters painted "We Stand" on broken walls. In Tokyo, a group of survivors used an old subway line to ambush enemy drones. In Cairo, tanks buried in sand for 50 years rolled back into battle. Every street became a fortress. In the bunker below Geneva, Dr. Navarro saw the energy levels reach full charge. "It's ready," she whispered. She pressed the control pad. The ground trembled. A blinding light surged through the planet's crust and erupted into the sky. The Atlas grid activated, a storm of electromagnetic force that spread across the atmosphere like a second sun. Alien ships froze mid-air. Their systems failed. Engines died. For a brief, impossible moment, the mighty Vorkal Armada was helpless. Elias saw his chance. "Now!" he shouted. The human fleet fired everything. Every missile, every rail slug, every beam of light. One after another, alien ships fell, crashing into oceans and mountains. The night sky turned white with fire. Cheers broke through the static-filled channels. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity had struck a real blow. On his command deck, Elias exhaled. "Good work, Sarah," he whispered, though she could not hear him. In the bunker, Navarro fell to her knees. The control panels around her were burning, the floor shaking, but she smiled. "We're still here," she said softly. The Atlas grid faded. The power was gone, but so was half the enemy fleet. Humanity had done the impossible. They had survived another day. Elias looked at the burning horizon of Earth and spoke quietly to no one in particular. "If this is our last stand, then let it be one they never forget." And somewhere beyond the stars, the galaxy listened. Weeks passed. The fire never stopped burning. Smoke covered half the planet, the oceans boiled with wreckage, and yet humanity endured. The Vorkal thought victory was certain. They had crushed empires older than time itself. They had erased worlds from maps. But Earth was different. No matter how many times they struck, the humans kept fighting. Even when there was nothing left to defend, they fought for each other. Commander Elias Ward watched from orbit as the last of the human fleet floated among debris. The Resolute had lost both engines, its hull torn open. Half the crew was gone. The rest worked without rest, sealing holes with scraps, patching circuits with bare hands. The crew was exhausted, their uniforms burned and faces pale. But when Elias walked by, they stood straighter. To them, he was not just a commander. He was the heartbeat of the last fleet of Earth. "Status?" Elias asked quietly. Lieutenant Rami replied, "The Atlas grid saved us, sir. The enemy fleet's in retreat, regrouping beyond Mars, but we've lost contact with most of the ground forces." Elias nodded slowly. He knew what that meant. Silence on Earth meant death. He looked out the cracked window at the planet below. Flames flickered across the continents like tiny veins of fire. He whispered, "We held the line." But for how long? Far below, Dr. Sarah Navarro stood in the ruins of the Atlas bunker. The weapon that had turned the tide was dead. Its circuits melted, its reactors silent. But her eyes still burned with defiance. She had seen humanity do the impossible once. She believed they could do it again. Sarah gathered a small team of surviving scientists and soldiers. Together they moved through the underground tunnels, searching for anything left: fuel, data, life. They found a signal coming from an abandoned orbital relay in high atmosphere. It was faint but alive. Elias's voice came through the static. "This is Commander Ward of the Earth Fleet. To any who can hear, humanity stands." Repeat, humanity stands. When Sarah heard his voice, she smiled for the first time in weeks. "Then we fight again," she said. The Vorkal regrouped. Their high command was furious. How could one small planet resist their entire armada? Their warlord stood inside his throne ship, surrounded by his generals. His eyes glowed with pale fire. "These humans waste our time," he hissed. "End this world." But one of his advisors, older and wiser, spoke carefully. "My lord, their defiance spreads. Other species are watching. Some whisper rebellion." The warlord slammed his clawed hand against the table. "Then we will make an example of them. Prepare the eclipse cannon." The room darkened as a massive image appeared. A superweapon orbiting near Jupiter, capable of destroying half a planet in one strike. It had never been used, until now. Back on Earth, Commander Elias received intelligence of the weapon through intercepted alien transmissions. The eclipse cannon would fire within 3 days. Elias stood before his tired, wounded crew. "If that cannon fires, Earth dies," he said simply. "So we take the fight to them." Murmurs filled the room. Rami frowned. "Sir, our fleet is in pieces. We cannot even reach orbit safely." Elias looked around. "We have what they will never understand on heart. I would rather die reaching for the stars than live hiding in the dirt. We fight or humanity ends here," no one argued. They all nodded. In less than a day, the remaining ships, barely 20, were repaired using scavenged parts. Civilian ships joined too. Mining vessels, research craft, even cargo haulers converted into makeshift warships. Humanity's fleet was ugly, patchwork, and small, but it was alive. They launched from Earth's surface at dawn. Engines roared as the battered fleet climbed through the black smoke, breaking into the stars once again. Below them, the people of Earth looked up and whispered prayers. "Bring them home," one mother said to the sky. As the fleet reached Jupiter's orbit, they saw it, the eclipse cannon. It was enormous, like a floating city made of black metal, with a glowing core that pulsed like a beating heart. Around it, hundreds of Vorkal ships guarded it like wolves. Rami's voice shook. "There's no way through, sir." Elias smiled faintly. "There's always a way through." He opened the comm to all ships. "Listen to me. This is not just another battle. This is the line between existence and extinction. They think humanity is weak. Let us show them the truth. Let us show them what it means to stand." And then, humanity charged. The Vorkal fleet opened fire first. Beams of plasma tore through the darkness. Explosions lit up the void. Human ships weaved between them, dodging, returning fire. Even ramming the enemy when out of ammunition. Every explosion of a human ship blinded the darkness for one heartbeat. A reminder that defiance could burn even brighter than death. Elias's Resolute pushed forward, engines screaming, hull splitting apart. He aimed directly for the eclipse cannon's main reactor. "Sarah," he said into the comm, his voice calm, "we are not done yet." From the ground, Dr. Navarro activated a pulse beacon linked to the wrecked Atlas grid. Its remaining power surged through the Earth's magnetosphere, creating a chain reaction. The energy traveled through space, latching onto the Vorkal fleet. The eclipse cannon flickered. Its power core destabilized. The warlord shouted commands, but it was too late. Elias smiled as his ship broke through the final wave. "For Earth," he whispered. The Resolute collided with the cannon. The explosion was silent in space, but the light was seen across the solar system. It was brighter than the sun for 1 full minute. The shockwave tore through the Vorkal fleet, ripping it apart. From the surface of Earth, the people saw the light and fell to their knees, not in fear, but in awe. Sarah looked up, tears in her eyes. "He did it," she whispered. "The eclipse cannon was gone. Jupiter burned, and humanity had won the impossible battle." But as the cheers echoed across the ruined world, Sarah's face turned solemn. "The war is not over," she said quietly. "We only turned the tide, and somewhere in the dark corners of the galaxy, the remaining Vorkal ships began to regroup. Humanity had become a symbol, and symbols can never die." The war ended not with cheers, but with silence. When the light from the eclipse cannon's explosion faded, the stars returned one by one. The wreckage of war drifted like dust in the dark, broken ships, shattered machines, and the ghosts of millions. For the first time in months, there was peace. Commander Elias Ward and his ship, the Resolute, were gone. Nothing remained of them but fragments of metal glowing softly near Jupiter's orbit. To the people of Earth, he became more than a commander. He became a legend, the man who gave his life so others could see another sunrise. On Earth's surface, the fires had finally dimmed. The oceans were black with ash, the skies still heavy with smoke, but there was air to breathe and ground to walk on. Humanity had survived. Dr. Sarah Navarro stood at the edge of a ruined city once known as Geneva. What was once full of light and sound now lay silent, a monument of stone and steel. Her lab was gone, her team scattered, but her eyes were steady. She had seen the worst and still believed in the dawn. She knelt, picking up a single flower growing between the cracks of concrete. It was small, fragile, and pure white, life reborn from ashes. She smiled for the first time in days. Behind her, survivors were building. Soldiers and engineers worked together, raising metal walls and repairing old generators. Civilians carried food, patched shelters, and shared whatever warmth they had left. Humanity was rebuilding not from wealth but from will. Sarah walked among them, speaking softly. He believed we would rise, she said, pointing at the sky. So we must. Above the planet, the few remaining human ships hovered like guardians. Their hulls were scarred, their engines weak, but they flew proudly. Across every screen in the galaxy, a signal appeared. A message broadcast from Earth. It was Sarah's voice. To every world that hid, to every species that fled, to every civilization that gave up, hear us. Humanity stands. We are broken, yes, but we are not defeated. We fought the storm and lived. You can too. The message spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, alien eyes watched in silence. On the frozen moons of the Kalari, workers stopped their machines to listen. In the deep vaults of the Dren Collective, leaders lowered their heads in shame. Even in the ruins of fallen empires, whispers began to rise. They survived. The humans survived. Weeks later, the Galactic Council, once the center of galactic power, sent emissaries to Earth. For centuries, they had ignored humanity, calling them reckless, violent, primitive. But now they came with trembling hands. The Council shuttle landed on what was left of New Geneva's plaza. Dust rose around the sleek alien craft as the ramp lowered. Sarah and the surviving Earth commanders stood waiting, weapons holstered, faces calm. A tall alien ambassador stepped forward, its silvery skin catching the weak sunlight. Dr. Navarro, it said, voice echoing like glass breaking. The Council offers its recognition. Humanity has earned a seat among the stars. Sarah looked at him quietly. Behind her, people were still building walls out of rubble, still carrying the wounded, still burying the fallen. She said, we never wanted recognition. We wanted to live. The alien's expression softened. And yet you became more than survivors. You became hope. Sarah turned her eyes toward the horizon. Smoke still rose, but beyond it, a faint golden light touched the clouds. Hope is what we give to others, she said. That is what Elias taught us. Days turned to months. Earth slowly healed. Forests grew again where ash once covered the soil. The seas cleared. Children laughed under skies that were no longer red. The cities of Earth became symbols of rebirth, living monuments of courage. Humanity was no longer alone. The Kalari offered crystals to rebuild power grids. The Dren engineers shared new ship designs. Even the Orok Dominion, once an enemy, sent their strongest warriors to stand guard on Earth's borders. It was strange. A galaxy that had feared humans now trusted them. But deep inside, every alien knew the truth. They did not help humanity out of pity. They did it out of respect. In the new Capitol dome of New Geneva, a statue stood at the center. It was carved from the steel remains of the Resolute. The figure looked to the stars, one arm raised as if pointing to something beyond sight. The plaque beneath it read, Commander Elias Ward. He showed us what it means to stand. Every day survivors came to lay flowers at its base. Some cried, some saluted. All remembered. Dr. Sarah Navarro often visited at dawn. She would sit on the cold stone steps, coffee in her hand, watching sunlight break through the clouds. She would close her eyes and whisper, You were right, Elias. We endured. One morning, as she sat there, a transmission came through her earpiece. It was faint, full of static, but human. This is Resolute Survivors. Heading home. Her heart froze. She stood up sharply. Repeat that. The voice came again, clearer this time. We made it. Coming back to Earth. Tears welled in her eyes. After all the darkness, a spark still burned. Humanity had lost much, but not everything. Not yet. Months later, under a clear sky, the galaxy gathered to witness something no one had ever seen. A united world. Flags from every species flew beside the Earth emblem. The new United Galactic Accord was signed by every leader, human and alien alike. When it was done, Sarah stepped onto the balcony of the rebuilt capital. Below her, thousands of humans and aliens cheered together. She spoke into the open air. Let it be known that when the stars turned their backs, one world remained. When the galaxy knelt, one species stood tall. We were not born powerful. We were not born perfect. We simply refused to surrender. The crowd roared, and somewhere far beyond the edge of the Milky Way, the surviving fragments of the Vorkal listened. They heard humanity's voice echo through the void, and for the first time in their long existence, they felt fear, because they knew, if the humans could rise from ashes, then they could never truly be destroyed. The galaxy had new rulers now. Not by power, but by spirit. Humanity stood alone when all others fled, and in the dawn after fire they became eternal,